Welcome back to day 15. Carrying on from the cautionary tales, I wanted to do just a single recording on what I call crying days. One of the things that occurred early on in my work is that it seemed like every Friday or a Saturday or maybe a Sunday, I would just cry spontaneously. There wasn't anything going on in my life, but I just would start crying. And it would be one of those kind of cries that, you're standing up and you lean into your arm that's crossed over your forehead as you press into the wall and you just like sob. One of those. I think people call them ugly cries these days. But they would happen. And it took me about a month, about 4 or 5 crying days, to realize what was happening. Sometimes I'm a little slow on the uptake. But once I get it, I get it. The crying days were about the fact that my body needed to offload what I was impacted with as the healing practitioner. And this was in the days when I was doing in-person sessions, which also included energy medicine, hands-on healing. So I just wanted to create some bullet points about crying days because I'm not the only empath out there that has had those days. Men or women are going to have these upwelling of intense feelings. Research actually notes that crying releases stress, particularly for women. So if you're having crying days, and it's not necessarily all day, but it's an odd pattern that can occur spontaneously anytime, and you're grieving. That's what you're really doing. You're grieving with and for the people with whom you've worked, or even the larger global culture. Because it's a little bit of a cosmic hairball out there. I think we can all agree on that. So crying is healthy, first and foremost. It's stress relieving. It also shifts the energy back to you. When you're a healing practitioner, and I'm including physicians, psychiatrists, psychologists, all of us who are in service to others. You can be a banker, a school teacher, a bus driver, anyone who is in contact with a lot of people or people who are suffering. Social workers, think of a social worker. Or teachers in inner city schools. We're all intuitive, right? That's a natural, given, organic part of who we are, which is very misunderstood. And we all feel. Some close it off better than others. Some just have a visor down cognitively and soulfully, and they don't get hit with it. And some of you listening to this are extraordinarily physically empathic. And I'll dial into those levels of intuitive perception that deal with empathy down the road. But for now, know that those crying days are normal, and take yourself off the hook thinking that there's something wrong with you. That will simply perpetuate more personalized crying days. If by chance you are in the healing arts and you're having a lot of these sequences come in where you're really feeling too much and you find yourself in grief and crying all the time for the trees, for the icebergs, for people, for your clients, for the global patterns going on in the world, you need to take a break. I believe in being informed when it comes to the news, but most of the time, if you really listen to the news, it's people's opinions. It's very rarely breaking news. And when it is, it's not pretty. They don't focus on pretty things in the news by design. Keep informed, but don't overdose yourself with it. I often watch the Weather Channel because weather is really about the only real thing on television. Think about that for a minute. If you're having more of these days than you know is reasonable for you, meaning you don't want them this frequently, Back off on the work. You may be doing too much. You need to perhaps reassess what type of client works best for you. That's another thing. When you're doing this work, you're in charge of who you see. If you've had an abusive past and you haven't healed all of that yet, the last thing you need is a lineup of abused people to push that button in you. You have to have risen above your own trauma in order to be successful as a practitioner, a therapist, psychologist, social worker, or a life coach or someone in the healing arts, whatever the label you work under. So back off on your work. Reconsider, in other words, the length of time you are in session or consultations. Choose whether or not you want to continue to see people in person. If that makes sense to your work, you're going to need to. A massage therapist it's a little tough to do a massage over the phone or Skype. So it depends on the context in which you're doing your work. But reassess the frequency of how you're engaging. Reassess the fee in a reasonable way. Pay attention to your own energy systems. Let's look at it from a chakra point of view. You have to understand where you are being hooked, because that is the place from which you are engaging your energy as a primary source of energy in the context of your work. Wherever you are feeling your own discomfort is a place of power in which that power is being challenged in some way. Therefore, you need to look at that. In my book, Intuitive Wellness, there is a practice known as running the rainbow. This practice is otherworldly. Yes, many people have practices running energy through chakras, and that is awesome. That's amazing. Because everybody has their own take on it. This practice, though, was formed from an experience I had when I died, when I was on the other side. It has that taproot that sinks into sturdy, stable ground, earthly and non-earthly ground, from which arises the practice. It is healing, and it builds intuitive discernment. It takes the intuitive skill toward structure. And I'm all about the structure of energy and patterns and the way it develops, the way it moves. The more you know your own systems, the more you can be of help, the less you will lose power, and therefore, again, the more you will be of service to yourself and others. Know your energy. Do that practice or do one that you know works for you. Before and after, and if needed, you can engage a practice while you're in the context of a session without disrupting the flow of information that's coming to you. It takes a moment to direct your energy to start moving. A nanosecond, a thought, that won't disrupt what you're doing for someone else. If you don't do it and you know you need to, your intuition is telling you to reground in the context of a session, then it will affect your work because you ran over that and put some tire tracks on your own intuition. Beyond looking at where your own energy systems are, whether you're gaining, losing power, staying in neutral, closing, opening, whatever's going on, check your psychology too. Are you in rescue mode? Do you feel you have to save somebody? You're not in charge of their life. You're supporting them in the moment on their journey, and that's it. That's where it ends. Now, it's not always easy because I fall absolutely in love with my clients as human beings. They are wonderful people. I am so blessed to have the people even ask for my time. Oh my goodness. Find your own way. These are only suggestions. I think you can recognize by now, if you've listened up to day 15, that I'm not draconian. It's your life, my darling. It's your life. Live it the way you want to. If I could put your life your way on my car license plate, I would. That's one of my favorite messages. I've been very fortunate to come back and live again. Most people don't get that opportunity. And I'm not talking about reincarnation. I'm talking about getting to come back in the same body. Be of service, but don't hurt yourself in the process. So if you're having more crying days than you would like, reboot. Make a list of all the things that you love about your work. Make a list of all the things that give you challenges or you absolutely don't like about your work. Change the ones that aren't working, the ones you don't like that give you challenges. And when I say challenges, I'm not talking about petty little things. I'm talking about being willing to run over your intuition when you know you shouldn't be working with this type of person or a specific individual with whom you don't resonate. Don't run over your intuitive guidance. We do it all the time, but in the context of the work, you can't do that for yourself and not for your client. This is a simple thing, and I know you've heard this before, but hydrate. Drink at least a half an ounce per pound of body weight every day. And that's just for basic metabolic function. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you need 50 ounces of water, even if you're just sitting there watching Jeopardy all day, or Breaking Bad, or The Walking Dead. You get my point. If you have activity in your life, if you're running, exercising, running after children, running after anything or anybody, chasing around town, you've got to hydrate. A percentage or two of dehydration affects the brain very quickly. It's the first to go. You need a brain and a nervous system that can pick up the subtle inferences and hard data that's coming through to you. You are a body of saline. You are a column of ocean water. And you've got to hydrate. You've got to have happy cells in your brain, in your heart, and everywhere else in your body, because it is an electrical system. And you need your electrical system in order to translate the intuitive unseen data you're receiving through the faculty of your intuition. It comes in, it hits the field, goes right into the body, into various structures of the nervous system, gets up into the brain where it is translated and interpreted into language. Hydrate. It's absolutely essential. And one final point. Those tears you may cry for yourself, for your client or patient, and for the world, those are sacred tears, meaningful tears. Take your fingers and wipe them off your cheek and place them on your heart and breathe. And breathe. You will know what to do for yourself. You will know what to do for your work of service. You will know how often your body wants to engage in this work because it rules. It takes the hits. They're not all bad hits. Being an angel coming into your energy field in behalf of your client is not a bad thing. Your nervous system, though, feels it. There is impact. So be mindful. Practice loving kindness for you first, and the courage and the skill you need to become a medical intuitive, to do the work of your choosing, whatever that is, will be there. You can do this. Crying is a good thing. As you cry, pay attention to the part of you that is observing your crying. Sit there in that part of your mind and behold the beauty of you as a human being. Even in your own suffering, there is beauty. Find the beauty. The pain and suffering will recede. Until next time.